didn't really want to start learning Japanese all over again, but if I did, I could do it way better this time. I'm gonna break this video down into 3 parts. Day 1 and what I learn immediately, the mindset I'd recommend and books I'd pick up, and the beginner stage and how I learn vocabulary, grammar, a little speaking, and some kanji. Finally, the post-study phase, which will take us from upper beginner into the stratosphere. So buckle up. In the past, I've recommended using Tofugu's blog posts for hiragana and their posts for katakana. These are the phonetic scripts used to write Japanese words out, and those are probably still the best resources that currently exist, but what I would do is learn hiragana and katakana at the same time. Learn the hiragana a and katakana a as a pair. Sadly, I couldn't find any resources that do this yet, so I think I'm gonna make something like that on my own website soon. I'd then buy Tango N5 for vocabulary, Genki or Tobita Beginner for grammar, and Remembering the Kanji by James Haysig for, you guessed it, light reading. No, obviously kanji. When I first studied Japanese, I had a mentality of wanting to rush to the finish line, but learning a language doesn't really have a finish line. You should definitely set tangible goals like how many kanji you want to learn per month or how many hours you want to spend per week studying, but thinking, I'm going to be fluent in 3 months is a mistake. Sure, you hear stories of people passing high-level Japanese tests in 6 months, but those people almost without fail have a weak spot or 3, often speaking or writing or something. So set goals, but be realistic. It's probably going to take you 2 years to get to a point close to where you want to be at. So finding ways to have fun while learning Japanese will be important. We're going to get to that later in this video. Also remember that your goals will shift over time. You can never foresee what will happen over a 2-year period, so accept that you're going to move the goalposts from time to time. It's also important to remember that just because you haven't reached your ultimate goal doesn't mean you can't enjoy speaking to people in Japanese or consuming Japanese content. You'll start enjoying that quicker than you can imagine. So I definitely wouldn't have rushed things. I did enjoy the process of learning Japanese, but I think I would have relaxed a little. Tango N5 and really all the Tango books are awesome because they include example sentences for almost every word they teach, and those example sentences only have words that you already learned. They also have native audio for every example sentence, so it's a huge win. There are some pre-made flashcard decks available for the study app Anki. I recommend Nuke Marine's deck, which you can get from him on Discord if you show proof that you bought the actual book. That's how I would start learning vocabulary if I were starting over, and I'd probably continue on to the Tango N4 Anki deck as well. N5 and N4, by the way, are the 2 lowest levels of the Japanese language proficiency test, or the JLPT, which you'll hear a lot about when studying Japanese. You could also learn the vocabulary in your Genki or Tobita textbook if you want, but Tango is probably enough for now. Maybe just be aware of the vocabulary presented in your textbook, but don't worry too much about memorizing every word. For grammar, I'd jump into either Genki or Tobita beginner textbooks. Right now, I'd probably choose Genki because Tobita Beginner 2 hasn't been released yet, but when that releases, either are fine choices. When I learned Japanese, I just went in alphabetical order through the Dictionary of Basic Japanese Grammar, made sentences, and had a teacher check them. It worked out in the end, but honestly, I think it makes more sense just to run through a textbook that puts the basics in an okay order. If you want to get started on grammar now, you can check out my playlist that goes through all the grammar in Genki, and since Tobita Beginner is in pretty much the same order, it essentially covers all that too. I'll drop a link in the description. I probably wouldn't start going out of my way to find people to talk to at this point, but there's nothing wrong with doing that if you want. It's what I did when I started, but a lot of people will feel a bit out of their league still. If you're into that kind of challenge though, go for it. It worked for me. Regardless, I'd start shadowing a couple times a week. Shadowing is when you try to repeat what you're hearing while you hear it. You listen to a sentence or two a bunch of times, maybe read it to get an idea of what the meaning is, and then speak along with a native who is reading or speaking that sentence. You try to mimic them exactly, their pronunciation, intonation, etc. Do that a bunch of times and then record yourself and see how close you sound to the original. This is a great way to get used to the rhythm and pronunciation of Japanese or any language. I actually did do shadowing when I was learning Japanese, but if I were to start over, I'd do more. Probably like 30 minutes to an hour 3 times per week, or something like that. I wouldn't change much for the beginning of my kanji journey. I think I would still go through Remembering the Kanji by James Haysig. The story-making skills for memorization and the way he explains the building blocks of kanji are still totally worth your time. But I do one thing differently. About 2 or 3 months into this book, I'd also pick up a Japanese Nintendo 3DS or 2DS LL and a used copy of the game Kanken Toreiningu ni. I'm actually playing this game right now to refresh my memory on kanji after being away from Japan for a while, and it's a great way to learn how to read and write Japanese, especially after you finish Tango N5 and 2 or 3 months of RTK. I'll go into details on exactly how I use this game in another video, so get subscribed. It's also probably worth using graded reading material at this point, especially if it has native audio. Graded reading material will really help the grammar, vocabulary, and everything else you've learned up to this point stick, and it will also give you lots of listening and reading practice, obviously. I would aim for this whole stage of vocabulary, grammar, shadowing, and kanji to last about 3 to 6 months, and I'd keep doing the Kanken game for another year or so because frankly, it's awesome. If you want help getting through this stage though, I created a website for that. Tokinyanity.com is where I, my wife Yuki, and her sister are creating everything I wish existed when I started studying Japanese. We take you through all the grammar necessary to get started on something like what we're going to talk about in the next section, with exercises, shadowing practice, and lots of original reading and listening material to help make it all stick, all while introducing you to new vocabulary in context. Get 50% off your first month with coupon code STARTOVER and join the community of over 1,300 Japanese learners today. After you finish this stage, as in you finish Genki 1 and 2, you're nearly done with RTK, you finish Tango N5, and maybe you're even dabbling in Tango N4, at this point, I'd start playing games, reading books, and watching anime. You can certainly continue to supplement with some focused grammar study using Quartet or Tobita or something, but I'd spend most of my time at this point doing immersion activities. For games, I might start with something like Dobutsu no Mori, also known as Animal Crossing, on Nintendo Switch or 3DS. After playing that for a while, I might move into an RPG like Dragon Quest or Etrian Odyssey, or visual novels like Professor Layton or Ace Attorney. Visual novels are great for learning because they have tons of reading, as they're basically novels, but also have music, pictures, and often voice acting. Sometimes even gameplay aspects that can make going through them a little bit more fun than just reading a book, especially if you're just starting out. An important mentality when you start one of these games, though, is that you're gonna be spending a lot of time in a dictionary. It can definitely be a struggle, but it gets easier with time. Or maybe you just get used to doing hard things. I'm not sure which it is, but as my 1 month of 3DS immersion video shows, the results are indisputable. You will get better at Japanese fast, no matter what level you're at. If games aren't your thing though, or you just really like reading, I suggest picking up some books aimed at elementary school students, like The Magic Treehouse in Japanese, or Kiri no Mukou no Fushigi na Machi, or Kiki's Delivery Service. You could also pick up the app Satori Reader to ease you into native material. I've read every single story on this app and I think it's great. Editor Andy here, I just realized that I never mentioned manga here. What the heck was I thinking? Manga. You could definitely read a bunch of manga right here. Something like Yotsubato or Nichijou would be perfect for this level. Another option would be graded readers. You can find a bunch of free ones on Taroku's website, but you'll go through them very fast, I think. After you go through a few of these and get used to reading books in Japanese, you can move up into more difficult things, like light novels. Don't be fooled by the name, the Japanese isn't necessarily light. They're gonna be hard, but it's totally worth it. Personally, I'd mix and match games and books just to keep things fresh and fun. Finally, what I would do is watch a bunch of anime or Japanese dramas, if that's your thing. Japanese dramas are not my thing, and anime wasn't before I came to Japan either, but I like it now, so I'd probably watch a ton of it if I were starting over. I might use something like Language Reactor with Netflix for looking up words I didn't know my first time through an anime, and then re-watch it without looking stuff up, just for fun. In reality though, I'd probably play games and read books in all of my free time, and then watch anime when eating, or when I got really exhausted from all the dictionary lookups. Then I wouldn't worry about looking everything up while watching, and just use it for some nice passive immersion while eating or relaxing. I'd use the browser add-on Yomi-chan for looking up words while going through games and reading books on PC, or a dictionary like Japanese when playing things off PC. You can use built-in dictionaries like Kindle app or the Kindle itself to look up words as you go as well. I'd transition to a Japanese-only dictionary after 6 months to a year of this type of immersion. By the way, if you need help setting up Yomi-chan, I have the perfect video for you. I'll link to it below for when you're done with this video. Post Genki is around when I'd probably start doing online speaking practice as well. I'd probably do something like Dogen's pitch accent course around here to learn more about Japanese pitch accent, obviously, and then jump into talking to teachers from iTalki or something. I started much earlier when I originally studied Japanese, and that was fine too. I lived in Japan when I started, so speaking from day one was basically a requirement. You could start doing this after Genki 1 or something, but starting at this point in the process will be a bit easier for you. Finally, since I like playing games, reading books, and watching anime, I just do this stage forever. I also like when people hit the like button and subscribe, so if you enjoyed this video, it'd be awesome if you did that too.